Alright, hello and welcome to my eyeshadow palette collection and declutter as of the end of 2021. Hopefully this turns out the footage. I've been thinking about filming this for a while and I wanted to make sure the quality was good, but now I'm kind of just saying I'm gonna film it on my phone and it just is what it is. So I will share the final numbers at the end of the video. I'm not gonna be swatching anything. This is gonna be hopefully a really quick filming thing for me because I'm a little bit behind today. I also am gonna share that I'm decluttering like pretty much exactly 15% of my eyeshadow palette collection this year, which I think is great. I will again share the final numbers at the end, and I'm just gonna get into it and show you what I have and talk about it pretty briefly. First, I'm going to start with some square palettes. This is actually a Shop Miss A empty palette, but if you've been on my page for a while, you know that I repanned all my Juvia's Place palettes, including the Tribe, which is my favorite Juvia's Place palette. So I actually repanned those shades into two 26mm pans each, so I kept one set together in this little palette, and then I'm using the others as singles too in my singles collection, but I just like these shades so much. I mean, I would say this shade and this shade are constantly in my BYOPs, and I keep this together as a palette. I'm hoping to get a little bit more use out of it. I am keeping it going into next year, but I love this color story. Next is the Shroud and Butte Bean. Now is Batty Bean. It's frickin' bats. I ordered this in October. I received this in April of this year, I think, and I've used it a few times. Love this color story. I'm going to be keeping it. Really nice. I waited a long time for it too. Next, I have two copacetic cosmetics palettes. I have the Companion with M. Jones 5018 and the Streamside with Rocky Makeup. So I'll just show you what these look like, but I'm going to be keeping these as well. I also have some singles from Copacetic as well, but I'm just still learning the formula. Really enjoy both of these palettes actually, so keeping those. Next I have three palettes from Glam Shop. I have the Fioletti. Show you what that's like. I have the Laguna, which is gorgeous, but I wish there was another matte in here that went with the warmer shades. Looks like there's some fallout. I really like the Glam Shop formula. They are really fragile, the mattes especially, and a lot of kick up, but I don't mind that. I really like their shimmers too, but overall these three are really nice. Relatively new to my collection. I'm keeping those as well. Next is a Sugar Drizzle palette. This is the only one I own from Sugar Drizzle. This is a Pizza Kitty. Really been liking this, enjoying it. It's not my favorite formula for these shiny shifters. Some of them are better than others, like Space Meow and Pew Pew are really nice. And some of them are a little bit more dry, but still learning this one. But it's a gorgeous palette. I'm glad I have it. And then I have another Shroud palette, the Arcana, sorry. Haven't used this one a whole ton. This is another one that I'm hoping to get more use out of as I get rid of older eyeshadow palettes and palettes I'm not as interested in anymore. As I get those out of my collection, hopefully I'm reaching for this a little bit more. But yeah, so far keeping everything that I showed you. And we're gonna kind of keep going with that right now. So I have three of the Kaleidos Futurism palettes. I have the first one, Sci-Fi Green, which is now discontinued. I'm keeping this. My main critique of this palette, here I'll show you a better way, is that I think these two greens are really similar, but overall I really like this for a quick look. The black is great, gonna keep it. These pans are magnetic as well, and any palette that I can also use as singles has a lot of value in my collection. Here's the Astro Pink. This one is still available. Another kind of critique here though, like these two did not have to be in here. They could have done another shimmer, or even, yeah, like I don't know, like a lighter mauve pink, but anyway, that's a nice one. Still keeping that one. And then finally Electro Turquoise, and this is another one that like I was so excited when I bought this, but I have not really used it. I'm pretty sure I've used like some of the shades in BYOPs, but like overall I have not just played with this palette. So this is another one I'm going to be looking to get more use out of going into the new year. I think it's kind of a wintry color scheme. Next is my Kaleidos Flower Punk palette. I actually have plans on using this today, but I am keeping this one as well. I've used it quite a bit, but would love to use it more. Now we're going to get into some palettes I'm decluttering. I have four palettes from Pinky Rose, and I was super excited for these when I bought them, which I think was at the end of 2018. They're older. And I recently, I don't think it was this, was it this one? This is the Obsessed. I recently used this, well, within the last like 6 months, and I could not get the shadows to adhere on my eyes anymore. This is my favorite one, the Exotic Peacock, but I think what I've decided with these is that this one's also really good. This one's probably, the quality is still fine, but I'm just going to get rid of all of them because I'm not reaching for them. I'm not thinking about the fact that they exist for, you know, whatever reason. This one has 3 press glitters as well, and I think this one is their oldest palette, and the formula I can tell is aging too. It just like does not adhere to my eyes as they should, so I'm just going to get rid of all of them. But what I've kind of decided is I'm going to keep the idea of them because I have enough singles in my collection, especially with repanning all those Juvia's Place palettes. I could build a 9 or 12 pan version of this exact idea and have a better time with it. I had a look that I had created with this in 2020 in the very early days of my Instagram, and I recently did a series where I redid some of my looks, and this was a palette that I used in one of those recreations, but I then topped it with a Terra Moon shade, and it just reminded me that I can utilize, like especially this one here, I can utilize the idea of this palette without owning it. So that's what finally made me say goodbye to these, because I'm not thinking about them, I'm not reaching for them, and like the reality is like 100% I could just take this idea, pull in my indie shades and my repan shades and then my special sparkly toppers and like make something that I have a really, really good time with. So I'm going to say goodbye to those 4. So that's 4 I'm going to be saying goodbye to. Another one palette that I'm going to be keeping is Ace Beauté Paradise Fallen, and I've taken this thing apart so I can use it as singles. This one, Shadow, the navy, which I actually really, really like, fell apart, so I had to repan it. So it kind of looks gnarly right now. This would be one I would consider repurchasing in Ace Beauté's new formula, but I just haven't actually done that yet. I want to use this one more before I decide if I'm going to do that. It's just I find this palette really unique. I love this navy, love these tones. I know that the new formulation for Ace Beauté is supposed to be really good, so I'd love to maybe repurchase this in the future, but I'm going to hang on to it, make sure that I want to do that before I actually do it. And yeah, just going to keep that. Next, I have the Morphe 35M Boss Mood. I actually really like this palette. I like the looks that I make with it. I have considered repanning it in the past because there are a lot of duplicate shades. Like I could condense this down to probably 15 shades and have a really nice palette, excuse me, and still do the same looks that I'm doing with it currently. I just love the idea of greens and oranges, and it's just like this fall, smoky, beautiful palette. I'm going to keep it, play around with it some more. Again, I do think it would benefit from repressing and formulation as well. Like some of these shimmers, I think if you loosened them up and pressed them a little softer, they'd be really, really nice. So I'm kind of debating doing that. It would be a lot of work to take apart this plastic packaging, but I'm going to keep it for now, and it could be on the declutter list if I can recreate that color story, but for now I'm just going to keep it. So the next stack, I have 2 Profusion palettes. I really like these. They're so affordable, but I've used Citrine a lot for yellow blush, and I really like the Strobe Light shade. I just really like these both. They were $5. I love how this one's set up. These mattes are actually really, really good. This Radioactive is like this old gold antique gold shade that I love, so I'm going to be keeping those both as well. And then I have my Pride and Joy, my BH Sweet Shop palettes, keeping all of these as well. I'll kind of like show you, but I use these a lot. I love the formula of these. I am so glad I tried the cherry on top with my Ulta points and then just pulled the trigger on the rest of them because they are so gorgeous. I regret not picking up the orange one, but they're showing up in TJ Maxx, so I'm going to try my luck. But if not, I have these 4 to love and enjoy, and oh, they're so pretty. Then I also have my Glenlight Burger, keeping this as well. This is one of my favorite palettes in my collection. I just really like how this is set up. I like the color scheme. The shimmers are kind of leaking oil, but they still perform really, really well. The mattes perform well. I'm going to keep this until I'm not having a great time with it anymore, but I love the yellow, the orange, the neon coral. Again, the shimmers are really nice. Ugh, keeping that one too. Okay, I only have 3 stacks left. I've been through 3. So far I'm only decluttering 4 palettes, but there's going to be more soon here. So this is the Suva Rose Period palette. I love this one. I couldn't stop thinking about this palette, so I picked it up. It's kind of this neutrally modern renaissance, but a little more colorful kind of vibes, and the formula is really nice. I would like to play with this one a little bit more. I made this one into a magnetic palette because I pried out all the shades and applied magnetic tape to the bottom, so I can also use these in custom palettes, but it's a pretty neutral palette. I've traveled with it before. I don't really need to say too much about the Adept Plain Jane palette. This is the original before they changed 3 of the shades. Favorite palette in my collection, done. She's going to the grave with me. Tasha Denona Love palette. I haven't used this quite as much as I was hoping, but I have enjoyed it so far. So keeping that as well. Got that for 50% off. Some more Kaleidos. I have the Escape Pod. Definitely keeping this. Love these shimmers. Love the bright tones. I love almost everything about this palette, to be honest. Keeping. Same thing with Kaleidos Club Nebula. Plain Jane is probably my #1 palette, but this is definitely top 5. I haven't used this one as much as I should have, just because, you know, I have so many other palettes that are kind of distracting me, but this one is staying for sure. Next, the Nomad Tokyo Harajuku palette. So far, this is my only palette from Nomad. I do really like it. I think I need to spend a little bit more time with it because I might want to depot this and keep just the shades that I like. These middle ones here are all satins, and I'm just not a satin girl. I can be, but I'm not thinking of this palette when I'm doing really quick looks, and that's when I would reach for a satin. So I don't know if I would, you know, pry out these 5 shades, which are beautiful. The 5 mattes are really beautiful as well. I do really like the 2 pink satins. I've used those too, so I don't know. I just want to get a little bit more use out of this. This one could potentially be on the chopping block for depotting and kind of keeping what I want. This one is the Amy Hearts Beauty Alma palette with Amy Loves Makeup. If anyone bought this palette, I would love to discuss this with you, because I think there was a huge quality difference between, well, definitely the people that got it in PR, and even what Amy Loves Makeup has herself. And you can kind of, I don't know if you can tell, but like this shadow there is underfilled, that one's overfilled, that one's underfilled. So there's just kind of a sketchy situation going on here. And I know some people, I ordered this on the second round of pre-orders, and I know a lot of people in that second round of pre-orders felt the same way. But the main reason I'm bringing this up and feel pretty confident in it is this shade right here, Bloom, is so warm in my palette. And if you look at it on the influencers that got it, and even the people that got it on the first like initial launch, Bloom is more of like a taupey gray. Like I think it was supposed to look more like this one, but maybe lighter, like more of like that tone. And mine is just warm, and it just doesn't really go with, like, it doesn't even really go with the red that well. So I was just wondering if anyone has this and would love to discuss it, because I know there was some sketchy stuff happening and the brand no longer exists, but this is just kind of a fascinating piece of makeup YouTube history. And I do really like, I love this shade. I have to be honest. I like these mattes. These are magnetic as well. So like, again, I keep it because it adds so much value to my collection, and they're unique shades. And I just like having this palette around, and I wish I used it more, but maybe one day too, I'll swap out the shade for maybe one that would work better. Actually, that sounds like a great idea. And then I could pair this with my iridescents, and this would be my iridescent like sparkly shades, and this would create such beautiful looks. Anyway, I'm definitely keeping that one. I have 2 more Ace Beauté palettes. I have the Flare and the Oceanic. Love this. I was one that didn't have like a whole lot of issues with the initial Ace Beauté formula, so I'm not really going to spend like $40-45 on replacing these. I'm just going to keep what I have. I love the color scheme of this one. This one inspires me so much. I would say overall the shimmers just leave something to be desired for me, so I'm always going to pair it with some more sparkly toppers, but the color schemes of these palettes are just so good. And now that they kind of reformulated, if you haven't picked these up, man, I think the reformulated Flare could be a really, really good palette. Anyway, moving on. Another one I'm going to be decluttering, which I thought a lot about, was the Blush Tribe Hasina 2. This brand doesn't exist anymore. I also did pry these shades out and make them magnetic. I just don't reach for this. The formula, I would not say is unique. When I got it, I thought the color story was really unique, but now this is what I tend to buy in singles, like purples, blues, greens. I could recreate this palette. Same thing with the Pinky Rose. Like if I was looking for these shades, I have them better in my singles collection, and I need to get more use out of my singles collection. So this one is gonna say goodbye, but it was a good palette. She did well for me, and the packaging is beautiful, but she's gonna be passed along. Okay, and then another new palette to my collection is Beauty Bay Wilderness. We'll be keeping this. Really enjoyed this so far. This is another one that I wish I would have gotten a little bit more use out of. I've only had it like a month and a half, and I have used it quite a bit for that short of a time, but I love this color story, man. This brings me back to Melt Muerte, and even was it La Vida? I just love having this. It's just such a pretty palette. It's one of the few larger palettes I have that I can 100% stand behind. Super love this. It's matte heavy. Shimmers are gorgeous. Keeping. All right. 2 more piles. I'm going to start with this one. So these are the Juvia's Place mini palettes. I have 6 of them. I don't have the taupes. I don't have the 2 that were released for holiday last year, the purple and the yellow one. I don't have the blushed rose or the blushed bronzes or whatever they are. These are the 6. Oops, sorry, we're not even in frame. These are the 6 that I have. These are they're really good. I love these little 6 pans. The berries, they go dark. I think they're kind of matte heavy. This one isn't. This is probably my least favorite out of all of them, but they are this palette right here, so good. I love this palette. This is the Sweet Pinks. The mauves is also really good. I use it a little less though. The nudes I don't use this a ton, but I love the tones in here. They are light, yes, but like when I'm doing a simple look, or if I have a like sparkly shade I really want to use, I'll reach for this and then like use the sparkly topper. And like honestly, I really love these 6 mini palettes. Like they are just really, really good. My favorite is definitely the Sweet Pinks though. So vibrant. The shimmers are wonderful. This shade it's not even coming across as bright as it is on camera, but this one is so, so good. And then put those away, keeping all of those. I have the Flower Beauty Jungle Lights palette, which I purchased recently. I took this with me when I was out of town for Christmas, used it every day for like 4 days in a row. Super pretty. These are like really silicone-y Colourpop Super Shock kind of vibes, and I just love that it's just a little 6 pan, some neutral, some color. I took this and a palette I'll mention in a bit when I went traveling out of town. I never feel like doing my makeup when it's not sitting down at my vanity, but this is just a quick, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shimmers and travel palette. So keeping that one. Also have the Gimme Glow Juicy Olive. I literally thought about this palette for 6 months straight before I got it. So there's setting powder all over it. And I just really like this. I wish I would have used it a little bit more thus far, so I'm excited to be decluttering so that I can focus more on these palettes, but these are just my colors. They're beautiful, good formula, awesome little palette. I also like the martini theme as a bar manager. I have an Alter Ego Goddess palette. This is a dupe for the Natasha Denona gold palette. I actually really, really, really like this palette, and these pans are magnetic. I bought the dupe for the Love palette before I got the Love palette, and it just did not match up to the quality of this one. So I'm kind of sad that Alter Ego seems to be going, I would even say they seem to be going downhill in quality, because some of these shimmers in this particular palette are so good. And the ones in the Bloom palette, which was the dupe of the Love palette, were just not. And then this palette is magnetic, and that palette was not. And I just feel like I have a treasure with this one, and I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm going to love it. And Natasha Denona has discontinued, I think, the gold palette, but I don't think I need it. I really, really love this palette. It's so pretty. Ugh, I'm keeping it. Anyway, here's another one I'm decluttering. This is Colourpop Fame. I really like this palette, and I use it a lot traveling as well. It's a very, very pretty mauve-y, cool tone palette, but I have other ones from even Colourpop themselves that are like basically this, and this one's older, and I have not reached for this in a really long time, so I'm just gonna pass that one along. I know I have a lot of friends that could get a lot of use out of that one. I have a few more BH palettes that I am not getting rid of because I love Passion in Paris, really good palette. Avocado Toast, really like this one as well, and Blueberry Muffin. looking to get a lot more use out of these three going into 2022, because I think they're beautiful formulas and color schemes, and again, I haven't played with them as much as I should have. It's very rare that I have, I think I might share this in the caption or description box. I only have three palettes that are above 16 shades. And this is one of them. This is the Blend Bunny Blends palette. This was the one I've been waiting to buy a rainbow palette for a really long time. And this is just the one that I wanted it to be. I love how it's set up. The formula is really fantastic. I need to remember to use this one when I'm working with a palette that doesn't quite have the right blending shade for me, or if I want to go deeper. Like, these deep tones are just stunning. So I have been really enjoying this, and I'm going to keep it. I am thinking about the Surge palette, but I just haven't. The size holds me back, I have to be honest. Like, and I think the size holds me back from even using this to the best of, or, you know, to the most that I would. But I love it. I don't regret purchasing it. Love the formula. I'm excited to see what Blend Bunny puts out. If they ever do smaller, like, really curated color stories, sign me up. Another really large one that I have that I probably should declutter, but I just don't feel like I have my feelings all together on it. Is this So Jaded? And I just realized, and I have a whole Colourpop stack to go through in just a second, but I'm probably going to take out these pressed glitters and put in different shades from the palettes I'm decluttering so that I won't have any Colourpop pressed glitters anymore. Yeah, I might do that so that I can just make this be, well, firstly, just shades, I would use all of them, but then also just, like, I like this palette. I really wanted this palette. I picked it up when I bought the At Forest Sight palette, the Raw Beauty Christie collection, and I've maybe used this twice, 3 times, and for 30 shades, like, I need to use it a little bit more, but I think if I get rid of those pressed glitters, I think I'll be able to reach for it a lot more. I just like the mattes in here. Like, I don't know, they're just pretty. So, and this appears super shock, that's kind of pulling away from the pan, but I'm going to keep this, play with it a little bit more. If I really don't use it into the next year, I will probably pass it along. Okay, last stack. And this is going to have a few more declutters as well. So this is going to be mostly Colourpop. I'm actually going to talk about what's not Colourpop first. I have the 2 Sugar Pill Fun Size palettes. Love these. This was probably one of my favorite palettes I bought in 2020. This is the original Fun Size. Beautiful shades in such a cute little packaging. This is a Fun Size 2. Bought this on launch as well. Just really like these. I love pairing these with Indie Sparkly Shimmers. So they have a very special place in my collection, and they're small and they're cute, and I'm keeping those. So my Colourpop smaller palettes, we're going to get into those now. I have the Pretty Much mini 6-pan. I actually really liked when Colourpop did these. I wish they would bring them back. This one was for a Valentine's collection. Ooh, I want to say 2019. These are some really pretty shades. I might even pull, like, these deeper berry shades and maybe put those into So Jaded. I guess I'm not sure. I'll figure that out later, but I will be decluttering this. I don't reach for it. It's so tiny in my palette drawer. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just like I don't think about it. The shimmers aren't that particularly special. So I just don't remember that this exists, unfortunately. So I'm gonna pass it along and just pass it along. This is my newest Colourpop palette, the Orange You Glad. I bought this because of FOMO, missing out on the BH1. Have I used this? I think I used one shade in here so far, but I actually really like this color story. I'm excited to have this. I might swap out this pressed glitter too as I kind of say goodbye to some of these eyeshadow palettes, but this one obviously I'm keeping. Next is Honey. This is probably my favorite or second favorite monochromatic palette. You can see I've got dips. Yellow is a shade I reach for when I'm looking for a really quick but impactful look. Like, I love yellow eyeshadow and a deep lip, whether that's a red lip, a deep red lip, a deep brown lip, a deep even like grage lip. I love this palette. I can't say enough about it. Sunburst is a duochrome. You've got a bright matte yellow, a more medium matte yellow. You've got a brighter pastel nude yellow, and then, like, I just love how this is set up. And yeah, I think that is my favorite monochromatic one. This one I'm going to be decluttering is the Aura and Out. I just used this recently. I might pull, like, this shade I might pull out because it's a Super Shock, maybe even this Chartreusey shade. I just loved this color story, and actually Glam Shop came out with a 9-pan that looks a lot like this that I might pick up just because I love the idea of this. Same thing with everything else I'm decluttering, or I should say a lot of the things I'm decluttering. I can make a better version of this with my singles. I know that I can. I have chartreuses, I have warm tone neutrals, and I have mints. So I'm going to be doing that and passing this one along. I just used it recently too, and it wasn't really adhering to my eyelid that well. So I think it's just a lower quality. I might keep the matte white, to be honest with you, but I'm just passing this one along. Okay, so Just My Luck is another monochromatic one. Love this palette. I like that there's sagey, more eucalyptus shade greens. I like the Mary Jane, like chartreuse, and then I like the more olivey green browns. Love that one a lot. I also have Blue Moon. Also really, really like this one. Lumi is a great white with a blue shift. I like how many mattes are in here and how many different tones of blue. Like, you have more of a purpley, perry blue, you have light dusty blue, you have a warmer light blue. I really like this palette. I think it's a great one. That's probably my third favorite monochromatic one. I could do a reel ranking these if anyone's interested. This also would be in my top 3, the I Like You a Lot. Love the tones in here, love the mattes in here. It performs really well for me. And then It's My Pleasure I bought as well. Some really unique, not unique, but I think this is a uniquely set up palette in my collection, at least with what I own right now. Really like the varying tones of this palette. And then finally, I don't know if you'd call this monochromatic or not, but I have the Brown Sugar by Colourpop. This is up there with my most used. I bring this with me every time I go somewhere. So it was this palette and this one that I took with me for Christmas. I took this palette with the Sugar Pill one with the Adept Plain Jane on a longer vacation I took this summer. This is so little. The mirror is so good. The shades are so good. You have like warmer browns, cooler browns, mostly matte. I love this thing. I don't think I could ever part with it. And I don't even know if I'm close to hitting pan on it either, but I'm keeping this probably forever. I love the size and the utilization of it, and I think everyone needs their, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but if you have I think a lot of people who own a lot of Colourpop, you're going to have the 1/9 pan that really worked out for you. Let me know what it is. For me, it's Brown Sugar. I know for a lot of people, it's the coconut. That's coconuts. It's coconuts. Coconuts About You. Whichever one that one was. The Last Taupe is really popular. I'm just wondering if you're like, if you have a big Colourpop collection, let me know if there's a 9 pan that like you're attached to, because for me, it's Brown Sugar. And then I have the last of this video will be my 12 pans from Colourpop. I used to have a lot more. I've decluttered a lot of these. When they first were coming out, like when Yes Please came out, when the She palette came out, I was buying all of them, and obviously now I'm not going to do that because there's 80 billion of them and they're like all very similar. I am going to open up, okay, so I'm going to be decluttering these 3 as a whole. So Dream Street by Kathleen Lights, Element of Surprise, and You Had Me at Hello. This is the only one that's like actually intact from how it was. I'm going to be passing this one along. I really liked this. I liked like the contrast between the mustard and the purple here. I like this a lot, but I think somebody that doesn't have such a big collection would be able to get a lot more use out of it, so I'm going to pass it along. And it has a mirror, so it's just like, it's a decent palette. Talk about this one next. I think I popped 2 shades out of here that I wanted to keep and put them, okay, I'll show it later, but this isn't like completely accurate. I think the shade that was here, Kaleidoscope, is the one I kept from this palette and put it in a different palette, and I'll show you that in a second. And I did the same thing with Element of Surprise. There were shades here, here, and here that I swapped out for these glitters in palettes that I'm going to be keeping. So those 2 are being decluttered. And then I Think I Love You is probably one of my oldest palettes in my collection, but I love this palette. This is, I mean, Brown Sugar has my heart also, but I think this is the best neutral palette Colourpop has done. And you can see I have a huge dip in that shade called Bel Air. The neutrals in this palette are stunning. The mattes just make sense. You've got like a lighter cream, lighter mid brown, darker brown, and a black. Like, this is a good palette. If they ever brought this back, like, this one is so good. And I'm just going to keep it because the formula is still great. I think about it when I'm trying to do a neutral look, and like I think that some indie sparkly shimmer neutrals could be really, really good with this palette. Okay, then I have Good Sport, obviously keeping. I think this is one of the palettes that one of the best palettes they've ever done. Formula is still great. This one's a little bit more matte heavy, a little more colorful. I like how few neutrals are in this, but I would say this is a third neutral and 2/3 colorful. Really, really like this. That one I didn't change either. And by the way, this one is 100% original as well. I'm just going to talk about At Forest Sight as well quickly here. Keeping this one, love everything about this one. I love how many mattes are in here. The shimmers could be a little bit better quality, like especially Evergreen is like pretty subtle of a shift, but I can get a lot of use out of palettes with colorful mattes like this. And again, all these are magnetic, so that provides like a huge amount of value to my collection. Like I could pull out this Emerald City or this Fiddlehead to make a really good custom palette. So keeping that how it is. So now going into the palettes that I really, really liked, but I swapped out the pressed glitters in them. So Sweet Talk is one of my favorite palettes from Colourpop. There was a glitter here and here, and these are both shades from the Element of Surprise palette. I just really liked this lighter pink. I think it could be a really great inner corner with these tones. And then I got a little bit darker, and I think this, okay, I'm at the end so I can swatch. This one's like a little bit more redder of a brown and deeper than this like muted plum. So I think it's gonna go really, really well with these tones. And I'm excited to use this now that I've like taken out the pressed glitters and added shades that I thought this palette was missing. Like this one is a good middle corner or inner corner shade, but it's a Super Shock and not that pigmented. So I thought adding something that's like this light pinky flash is gonna do really well. And then just adding one more deeper tone. I'm really excited to use that now. And then finally, Flutterby. This is the palette that I was able to say goodbye to Fame for, because this is also mauves. I took out 2 shades in here. This is Kaleidoscope from Dream Street, and this is a shade from Element of Surprise. This was a glitter. I just added the purple pop. I think that's going to go really well with these tones. And then this one here was Kaleidoscope from the Dream Street palette, and I think that one's just, oh, you can't even see what I'm doing, but I think that's going to really contribute to this palette. There was a matte shade very similar to that one in that spot, and I just swapped it out for something a little bit more exciting, and I'm really excited to use this one now. It's, you know, neutrals with a little bit of color, and I'm excited that, again, I wasn't using the glitters. So my plan is to do much the same with these, because I guess only 2 of them have glitters, so it would be a very easy swap out. And then So Jaded. So I'll probably do that and then be done. But anyway, this is my palette collection. Everything is a mess right now. I can kind of show you how but this is the declutter pile. So I have 3 of the 12 pans, Aura Now, Pretty Much, and Fame, all from Colourpop. And then I have Blush Tribe, Asina 2, and the 3 Exotic Peacocks. So if I counted correctly earlier, which I think I did, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I decluttered 11 palettes, and I initially had 71 palettes, which kind of surprised me. I thought I had more, but I guess I've been purchasing a lot of singles this year. But anyways, I decluttered 11 from my 71, so I'm starting off 2022 with exactly 60 eyeshadow palettes. And I do have one that I ordered a few months ago. It was a pre-order for Glaminatrix coming from Australia, the Sandra Rose Mini. That one's still in pre-order. It's not slated to arrive until January or February, I believe. So that one will be number 61 for the year, but I haven't received it yet, so I'm not really counting it. So I decluttered 11 palettes out of 71, and I like the nice, even 60 palettes going forward. I have been able to keep track of every single time I used a palette since about October of last year, I want to say. And I might be assembling that information to share with you all, because I think it's very interesting to see, like, I do wear makeup a majority of the time. I would say 5 to 6 days a week I'm wearing makeup. December maybe wasn't quite so high, just because I've had some things going on. But I do wear eyeshadow. I do wear a palette, I would say 5 to 6 days out of the week. And I have 60 of them. So like, I think it's very interesting to look at how many times I use a palette, and I might try to assemble that information and put it in my stories and on a story highlight soon. Another thing I might be doing is making myself some rules for a low buy or a no buy. I feel like I do have a lot of eyeshadow, and I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes that I love, that I would love to get more use out of. And if there's a release that's really tempting me, I wonder if I can't just create a palette, or like dupe out the palette, use it once, and then be satisfied, and like turn back to the things that I actually do purchase and I actually own, like the Kaleidos Club Nebula, the Flower Punk, the Glam Shop palettes, the Shroud Bats palette, the BH Sweet Shops, which are right here. Like, those are all palettes, and even like the Blend Bunny blends, those are all palettes I'd love to get a little bit more use out of. And I think if I just remind myself that I don't really need the new shiny thing, that I think this year could be very pivotal for me, like really dipping into what I already own. So that might be some upcoming content. And then if you watched all the way to this point, comment down the emoji with like the paint palette, the artist's paint palette. I'd be really curious to see if you're like me, who would just watch an entire 40-minute video on someone's palette collection, because I find it so fascinating. If you are a follower of mine too, and you like seeing my looks, and there's a palette that you want to see me create something with, absolutely let me know. I've kind of been in a slump lately, so if I get like any particular requests for, like, let's say like the Shroud Bats palette, or maybe even the Blend Bunny blends, or if you have the So Jaded and you struggle with using it too, like, I'd love to prioritize some of those things and dip into what I already have and make some looks out of them. So I'm excited for the year going forward. I'm excited to put these back in my eyeshadow palette drawer and have a little bit more room. And I'm really happy with what I was able to declutter and what I'm keeping, and looking forward into the future. Thanks again so much for watching. Please leave a comment if you feel so inclined, and I will see you next time.